Hi everyone, this is Julie here from the Scraps of My Life. I just wanted to do a quick recording. I had a thought. Uh, I have continued to study the watercolors and different artists and theory, just all sorts of people and things and techniques. I've been studying. I've really been studying, and and in the meantime, I'm making books. So I just kind of got tickled at myself. I come up here, I wanted to grab my watercolor book that I made to write in this very thing. Let me say it before I forget it. Excuse me, you don't even know what I'm laughing at. The the thing about watercolors. Now, I'm going to stop here and say I don't know if this is true in every art medium. I suppose that it is. I suppose that it is because we are individuals. That is why. But I'll define that in a minute, okay? Let me get back to what I was going to say. I'm gonna put it. I want to move the camera. I want to show you something in a minute. So excuse the wiggling of the camera right now. So just bear with me a moment, okay? Bear with me. The thing about watercolors, okay, and since I'm studying watercolor, that's the word that I'm going to put in that sentence, is the thing that makes it seemingly uh, elusive and maybe even hard and complicated. Let's see what other word. I'm working with no coffee here, so bear with me. Um, the thing that seems to make, since you're watching a watercolor video, okay, again, there again, that makes watercolors elusive. It's like it's just beyond your reach and you can't grasp it, is the fact that unlike math, old math anyway, spelling, you know, the basic learning, the way that we normally learn, okay, art is not the same because with addition, well, there's pretty much now don't go crazy on me, okay, and say, oh, but you can do this and that. Okay, I know there's methods, but technique, there's only one way to add. Okay, it's plus. You have to use a plus sign, okay? So you can arrange the numbers any way you want, but there's only one way to add. There's only one way to subtract. Okay, and that's by using the minus sign. But when it comes to art, and since in my case, it's watercolor, uh, and in yours, I assume, since you're watching this silly video, okay, uh, the thing that makes it so elusive is that there are so many different ways to approach it. I mean, I had no idea that you could paint clouds so many different ways, or a tree, or a landscape, I mean, really, really, I had no idea when I started this journey that there were so many different in one medium now. And I'm not talking about in different mediums. I'm talking about just in watercolor. And that is because, and here's the definition. That is because that we all individually learn differently. Now, some of us have a same learning style and pattern, and certain techniques and ways appeal to some of us as in groups. Okay, that's true, but we all have to find our niche. So the biggest challenge for you to learn watercolor, and the biggest challenge it has been for me to learn watercolor so far, is finding my style, my own. I've like I said, I've seen clouds painted, trees. And you know what? Here's the funny thing. Okay, now the clouds. I've seen some pretty interesting techniques. I really have. The sky, um, but the trees that I've seen. Now I've not watched a ton of trees like I have skies because I'm just. It's about the light. So I'm trying to get a hold of the light. Okay, without light in your painting, you just as well. Well, in my personal opinion, okay, without light, it doesn't bring the painting to life. And without light, you just as well be coloring in a coloring book, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, that is just my opinion. Now, that does not mean that that I don't absolutely love this little snowman right here, who is pretty. He has some shading. He has light. A little. I mean, what I'm saying is I love all kind of art, but I'm just saying for myself, for my work that I want to do, that I want to learn, I want the light is what intrigues me in watercolor. So that is just out of my reach right now because I have not quite grasped that concept altogether, but I am still working on it. So, long story short, then, if you're having trouble and you can't seem to get it, okay, then it's because you haven't gotten your style. You haven't seen anybody do painting or, show something in a video or in a class or however you're going about learning that yet you have related to yet. So just hang on. You will. If you keep searching, you will find, and you'll find your niche. So I have just an update on me. I'm gonna clip this down real quick. I am going to do a little quick update on my watercolor journey. I did not intend to do that. I got laughing at myself. I thought, all of this is so I can be better organized, really? I mean, look over here at my poor computer is even covered, okay? I mean, if you could just, okay, you see this mess, right? And in the midst of all this paper is books that I actually had to come up here this morning so I could write down what I just told you in a smaller, more condensed version in my artist book here that I created, that I have, by the way, been very much writing in. Am really really enjoying this. I encourage you, if you don't make a book, I encourage you to get a journal, either if it's just one at the store. I encourage you to record your thoughts as you gather them, because this is helping me to find my style and my, how I want to do it. I'll share this little tidbit. I just happened to choose this paper here out of a magazine because I liked what the words were on it. Start where you are. Well, not necessarily the Iceland part, but it went with the page. And I wrote this down. It had a brush on it, perchance. And I put this is a must, and this is a tip. And now I don't care how trivial these things sound to me later in life. I'll look back and I'll say that was so minute. You should have just known that from the get-go, because that's who I am and that's how I talk to myself. But and I dated it. The tip is it's good to have a second brush for adding water only to dilute bits of color, when you're painting. I'm ad-libbing here in a little bit to explain to you. Okay, like in a small subject especially, like if you're doing something very small and tedious and you really don't want a wet on wet going everywhere. And so you dry brush it, but then you have to soften the color. Well, hello, you're going to need a second brush. So yeah, and sometimes you add you might drop too much pigment on the paper and you might need to pick it up quick, or you might need to dilute it. I mean, how trivial does that sound? Okay, how common sense. That should be common sense. This is called watercolor after all, isn't it? Now, I'm not talking down to you. I'm not talking down to myself. I am just saying sometimes the obvious stuff is the stuff we stumble our toe on, you know? And then when we go to apply what we have, all these classes and all this learning and all these hours and days of watching videos, and we go and make a boo-boo on our paper, and we don't have that second brush. I mean, right? I mean, how silly would that possibly be? I got so intrigued. I mean, I was just mesmerized. I sat and watched this girl or lady or whatever she was. It only showed her hands, and I didn't research her age and all of that. Most of the time, if I find a painter I really relate to, I do some research on them immediately. Immediately I do it, and I should be writing it down, and I will write it down in this book. But she had 2 brushes in her hand, so help me. And when I first started watching her, I thought, oh my gosh, how is she not getting that second paint all over the canvas, right? Because she was just flipping it back and forth like a weaver with a shutter, with a loom. I mean, she was just extraordinary to watch. Of course, you know, it was sped up, okay? So that added to the delivery and the glamour of it. But still, 2 brushes in one hand and was fluently using it. It was just, I'm just like eating that up like a kitten drinking warm milk. It was just beautiful to watch. And then I realized that was not paint in her second brush. It was water. And so as she laid down her fine details, which is what she was doing, and doing her shading, she was softening those edges with that water brush. And it wasn't a large brush. It was probably about a 4 to a 6. Probably not even a 6. Maybe it was a 4. I don't know. It was small, but it had water in it. And yeah, I fell in love. And then I realized, hey, you've got to have a water brush. Okay, good. Moving on. But that is important. Okay, remember that tip if you haven't found that out yet. So yes, I encourage you, if you are serious about learning. I've been adding to my list, the ABC list that I created. I added pine cone. I added sandy beach, rusty nail in a board, an old rusted mailbox with undergrowth. I want to do rust. Yeah, I've been adding some evergreen, just different things. A barn. So yeah, I've been adding things here. I've been making lists, colors I want in my palette. Okay, that I'm noticing that most really good artists do not use a 41 slot palette with 41 colors. They use a small number of colors, and then they use their basic colors, and then they add in like quinacridone fuchsia, you know, or they'll add in I don't know, these are pretty basic except for that one, but they'll add in one odd color according to what they're painting. So I'm writing down things that I am going to want in my final palette, or in my everyday palette, whatever you want to call it, whatever you might call yours. I got a thing here on mixing colors. Let's see, I think I wrote something back here on around one of these feathers that was kind of important. Oh, not there. It's the thing with writing all over your book and not being chronologically in order. is that you have to hunt it when you're on a video, and there you are, and people's like, what? Okay, it's not that feather either. What happened to my feathers? Anyway, I wrote something around a feather that I wanted to remember. And right now, I guess it's in the front feather right here. Okay. So here, I wanted to point this out simply because this is not always going to be hard, because one day you're going to get it. You know, like I am beginning to see my style a little bit more and discovering myself a little bit more. And I have been doing a little sketching. I'm not going to pull that out. And I have been doing a tiny bit of paint, putting the paint on paper. Not much, okay? Not yet, because I'm not really ready. All right? I had to find out I needed a second brush, okay? So, but I do put in here, this is my celebration. I'm using these feathers for my celebration page. These are milestones. These are things that when I look back, I'm going to look at these and smile and remember, okay? But I started out because I was, we don't know how to pronounce her last name, but her first name is Way, and she is in France. And I have done links to her channel before. I was impressed. She was one of the first two artists that I looked at when I started looking into this wonderful world of watercolor. And she did florals, okay? So that's right down my avenue, okay? And the colors, okay? And she was using Sennelier paints, and the colors were so vibrant, and with the water, they were just beautiful. I mean, they went down like silk, it looked like. And she didn't struggle. You know, that's another thing you might want to notice when you're watching a painter. Are they struggling with their paint, or is it just flowing from their brush? You know, that gives you a little idea of whether they are, how skilled they might possibly be. Now, that's not always true, okay? Everything's not 100%, but when you see something time after time after time after time again, then you understand, okay, well, this goes with this goes with a more seasoned painter, and this goes with a more not so seasoned, you know. So you see things, you pick them up if you watch people paint. So I put down here that well, anyway, I ordered the Sennelier, and I got some tubes and the pans, because I think I like the pans. But I haven't actually painted with any of any Sennelier pans. I squirted out some of the tubes and did a little tiny bit with that, and it's easy to get too much color on your brush. Okay, so, you know, that's something else I've got to do as I begin to paint, which I haven't quite really done. You know, how to do the paint, how much water, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I come across someone who criticized the paints that I was using. Now, they didn't criticize me. They criticized the paint themselves in their own video. And they said that the paints look like they're powdery and cakey and dry looking. And all of a sudden, and I'm like, what? So I had tried to do is the key word. I had tried to do a watercolor, you know, not watercolor, but a color chart. And it was my first one, and I didn't like how it turned out. I absolutely trashed it because I didn't like it. I'm going to start over. I'm missing some colors. It was part of the problem. And so I said, okay. So there's another person, well, actually there's quite a few people on YouTube who happen to like the Schminke paints. I believe they're German made. Sennelier, of course, is French. Yeah. And so I found a decent deal on I think it was 32 or 30-something maybe paint set of the Schminke for a decent deal, and I ordered it. Okay, and it's supposed to be here like late August or something like that. So taking a while to get here for some reason. I ordered it off of Amazon, but yeah, well, you never know where they order their stuff from. But anyway, so that's what I wrote down here, that I ordered the Schminke half pans. It's my first set of Schminke paints, and I dated it. And I'm excited about it because now I can do what I always do to learn, and that is to compare more than one thing to another. Now I do have, and I have been using actually let me just show you the Koi watercolors. So I was trying to do a little bit of, I'm making a book to take with me to my mountain trip in the fall. This is my second one of my lifetime. I am 54, I think, years old, and this is my second trip in the fall to the mountains. My fourth trip altogether to the mountains. So, and I really don't live that far from them. It's sad, isn't it? But anyway, and I had a whole sheet, which was much cooler because I had all kind of color going on here. But this is just from my, now mind you, I made these kind of dense. They're kind of opaque, except for here. So I've been having kind of fun with those Koi watercolors. So I have those and only have that, which is way down the line of a student color to compare to the Sennelier, right? Anyway, that's all I have. So I am excited to get these Schminkes so I can have another fine artist grade paint to compare to my Sennelier and see when it dries. Because in my opinion, to me, the Koi's, I don't think they look flat, and and they're not even expensive paint. So yeah, so anyway, I'll be happy to get that. So that's my milestone thing here. That's what that's for. Anyway, I encourage you to do a book, even if it is just a notebook and you find something in a magazine and you want to tip it into your book and write something on it. You don't have to be all structured like this and make all this huge mess like I do. You really don't have to. Here's my little sketchbook. I don't know if I showed this. It was the first one that I had tried to do, and I messed it up. And so I told you I would fix it, and I did. And I've actually sketched more in this one than the other one, maybe because it's closer by. But I did a sunflower. It was a nice evening the other evening, and I sat out and did a sunflower. You would not believe how long it took me to sketch that, because I kept changing it, because I was doing it from my mind. And much harder for me to draw from my mind than it is to see something. And then I sketched out a little bench that's in my yard. It's a cement. I couldn't do the whole thing because I made it too, close to the bottom of the page, but it's got a bunny on it, and it's got bunnies on the bottom. And then I was doing a little sketching of a girl in a hat sort of a thing that I saw, another mind, in my mind thing that I when you look at an object and you see something in the object that's not really there, that's kind of what this was. So yeah, I've been doing a tiny bit of sketching. I've mostly been working on these books, and right now like I said, I was making one to take with me on my trip, and I was making it after the glue book style, and I'll just quickly show it to you. And I was not loving it. I mean, it was like, it was like my watercolor thing. I was missing something, which reminds me, I want to tell you about something in my watercolors. And I was missing something. So I was in the closet looking for something to put in it, and I came across this box, and I said, wonder what I've got in that box. I opened it. I thought maybe I had some bits and pieces for, a particular season, fall or Christmas or Easter, whatever. And I came across this book that I started, and there it was. I'm like, that's it. That is it. That is what I'm trying to achieve in this other book, and I'm just not cutting it. This is more of a journal style. This is definitely not the glue book style. And it just struck a chord, and it wasn't this decorated. I have been decorating it, adding pages. I'm going to do 2 signatures in it. Yeah, I'm sure all you watercolorists are happy to see me showing all this. Anyway, so yeah, so that I put one thing down and I found another that was what I was looking for. This is my cover I've added and got to decorate. But my thing is, I've watched all these videos on watercoloring, and I'm wrapping it up, okay? So I'm almost done. I've watched, I don't know how, I'm not going to count them, but tons of videos on watercolorists, both amateur, beginner, and experienced, seasoned artists, all sorts. And there was something missing. And I really wanted to stop and take a class. And I did enroll in a class, and I got to the 3rd or 4th lesson in the class where it came to the mixing of the paints. The color mixing is what it's called. And for me, it fell way short, because to me it was one of the foundation pieces. And that's another thing I should take a little time to talk about right now in this video, since this is that kind of video. You have a foundation, and if your foundation is not secured, then it will not stand. You cannot do like the brush thing, the wet brush, the second brush, let's just call it that. That is a foundation piece. Color mixing. My brain's not working on me right now. The mixing of the colors, huge foundation. Shading. These are foundation. There's foundation things. I was trying to explain this to my husband, who is not artistic at all whatsoever, but I love him so much because he's everything I'm not, and he's such a compliment to me in so many ways. But I was trying to explain to him, and of course he gets that when it comes to building and whatnot, but everything that we learn has a foundation. If you don't understand that the plus sign is what puts 2 and 2 together, and the outcome of it has to have equal. If you don't understand that these are the foundations of you learning this equation, then you'll never learn this equation. You will never get it, right? So I wasn't getting what I needed. There was something missing. And even though that person was a wonderful teacher and a wonderful watercolorist, I'm not even going to mention them. I am not going to tarnish them in any way. It was me. It was my style. I was not getting what I needed. Okay. I was getting one kind of vitamin and I needed another. That's all it was to it. So I talked to them, and they were so sweet and kind, and refunded my money for the class, because I just let them know this is not gonna work for me. This is not how I learn. And so I have, went on and found another teacher, and actually this man does a whole thing of DVDs, 15 of them to be exact, for beginners from starting from nothing all the way up to, and then I realized he does a preview of his videos on YouTube. Does not do classes really on YouTube. He just does a preview of his videos and does a little bit out of the video. And he took one color, whether it was sepia or whatever it was, he took one color, he shaded it 3 ways, light to dark, and he did a whole entire scene. I mean, he did a wall, brush, a building, trees, shrubbery, the whole beautiful scene in one color. And then I saw it. Then I realized what I was missing. I was missing, you know, I can sit here and watch these beautiful painters paint all day long, but I'm not ever going to get it if I don't get the foundation. So that's when the light struck me, and I realized, okay, Julie, you knew this, but now you see it. I am so visual when it comes to learning. And that is how I learn. So when I saw what he did, I mean, I didn't even sit there and watch him do it. I just saw his paint. I just saw it finished sitting there, and I realized, oh my goodness, that's what I'm missing. That's how I'm going to get my depth. I've got to understand placement, and I've got to understand, just like with any art, you have to understand perspective and size and where the light is hitting. Of course, it's like I knew these things. I saw that in everybody's painting, but when he did it in that monochromatic way, it like bam, you know, just turned on the light for me. And I am, you know, I'm hesitant to give you his name in this video, but I will list his name at the bottom. I'm not going to get anything from it or anything, but maybe you will. So, you know, I could relate to him as a teacher. That's what I'm trying to say. And that shading is what I'm going to call it. I'm sure it's called a number of things. And see, that's the thing with watercolors. There's, you know, when you look at the sky and you see the clouds, I'm wasting a perfectly good piece of paper here. I want you to know that. This paper is wonderful. I got it in a generic book from Michael's years ago, and it's the best watercolor paper, you know, for sketching. But anyway, so you never look at the sky and see it. You never see a sky the same twice. You never see the sunrise and the sunset the same twice. You never do. And that's kind of like what it is with watercolor. It's like everybody's got a different interpretation of a tree and a cloud and a flower. But the key is to find yours. The key for me is to find mine. And that brings me more focus, because it's easy with all these beautiful artists and all their techniques. I mean, there's more than one way to do something, okay? It's easy to get lost in it and to get frustrated, and then you just sit back and go, oh my gosh, I will never be able to, I can't do this. And that's because the new saying I learned, I'm going to write it down for you here. You do it the same way that you eat an elephant. And when I first heard that, I thought, ooh, I wouldn't even like elephant. They're probably mostly fat and tough skin, you know. But then I got past that, and it says, well, how do you eat an elephant? And it said one bite. I'm going to put bite spelled wrong. One bite at a time. No, I didn't spell it wrong. Okay, one bite at a time. That's how you eat an elephant. You probably can't see that, but there it is. So yeah, so foundation. So important. Get you a piece of paper. I'm going to do this too. I'm going to do this in my book, because the reason I'm recording a lot of this stuff, first of all, I don't want to forget it. Okay, if I get down the road and I think, oh no, you know, I should have wrote that down. I do that all the time. I didn't used to forget things, but now I do. Okay, so first for my purpose. Secondly, so that I have reference. And thirdly, if one of my children or grandchildren in their future decide that they want to jump off the diving board into the big ocean of art or music, these things that I write in this book will help them. if they really want to learn it, if they really want to know it. And it's just like someone who writes a book, and they have to do all this groundwork and all this study to learn 100 things that's not actually going to end up in that book, but it is going to help improve what they're writing about, and it's going to help improve what they're writing. So that's what this book also is about. So I encourage you, I cannot encourage you enough, that if you are starting out in the world of watercolor, whether you are 16 years old or 66 years old, never too old to create something beautiful, because it comes from our soul. It comes from our heart. And if it doesn't, it'll show on the paper or on the canvas or on the rock or whatever you paint or whatever you draw. It's going to show right there. Right here is where it's going to show up. So anyway, I wanted to share that, and I just had to throw in that little kicker. I mean, really, that's really why I was going to do the video, and ended up doing all this. But I guess I needed to do an update, because you guys probably thought, oh my gosh, she got overwhelmed and she just totally walked away. That's not the case. The case is I've been making a lot of books. I've been doing a little bit of, well, quite a lot of journaling, a little bit of sketching, and scratching a little bit of paint here and there. And yeah, get those kois, because you know what? I feel so much more at ease with those. There's I've got the 12, the 24. I'm looking around for them. They're missing. Here they are. I started out, I didn't love these, you know, in my professional brain, okay? But for a beginner, look how nice and clean my palette is compared. That's because I don't use it much, okay? That's why. But you can see that I have been using my paints a little, okay? I'm so proud of myself. There's some colors I haven't used much of, and I haven't touched, you know, some of them. But yeah, so yeah, I love this. I love this. I love this. I will not be getting rid of this. And when, you know, if I ever find a time that I'm in no more use for these, I'll give these to my granddaughter or grandson, whichever one of them is more apt to use them, and or save them for myself and stick them back in on a, you know, journey across the park, or walking down the road and stop and paint something. I'm enjoying these. They're not that expensive, and great in the probably one of the best investments I've made. I'm really, that's what this was done with. And I wish I had that other paper to show you, but I don't. I'll show you another time if I can drag it out the trash or something. Maybe I threw it away and it got thrown out. Anyway, thanks guys. Thanks for indulging me. And I just wanted to do a quick update and show you my organizing mess, right? I just wanted to share that with you, that I thought, Julie, you making all this mess just to get organized, really? But hey, it's totally fun, right? Okay, everybody have a super, super great time, day, night, whatever it is where you are. Thanks for watching. I'll be back sometime soon.